by the wayside, not at all. But our generation is faced with a lot of unique challenges, and that social media chapter touches on a lot of them. Challenges that our parents didn't face. Our
Mhm.
parents did not have to make decisions about what they were going to put up online of our lives. We are having to learn how to do this with no example that came before us of
Mhm.
what the consequences are. So, our goal is just to help our readers really be mindful,
Mhm.
really think before you take this action, because while it might seem okay today, what is the implication down the road? So many new challenges for modern
So
parents.
many. And I can't wait to see where we are 10 years from now,
Oh.
Yes.
even 5 years from now, where how these children are going to feel
And,
about.
the other thing that we did was we did a lot of interviews. So we asked different people to interview with us and talk about, all these situations and what they would do and how they would feel. And one of the interesting things about the social media chapters, we found that some of the younger parents who are in their early 20s, mid 20s, felt
Mhm.
that social media was their child's baby book. So of
Mhm.
course they would be putting everything up there because for them it was like, well, I'm not going to make a paper baby book. This is their baby book. And I want my child to be able to go back in 15 years and see all the things that we did together, the good moments, the tough moments, the milestones. And so in their mind, that was the reasoning behind it. And that's not necessarily wrong, you know?
Right.
It's
Mhm.
it's a completely different perspective. Like, okay, well, yeah, I guess I can kind of see that. And then if you keep going on that train of thought, are the kids who are not involved in that and have nothing on the internet in 10 years, are they going to feel left out?
Mhm. I remember reading that in the book. It'll be, yeah, I can't wait to see where we land on that one.
Mhm.
And that brings me to redefining etiquette, because you talked about, all the judgment, the stiff rules, so to speak. Many people aren't even sure how to spell it. I mean, you hear the word etiquette and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I am all about the new etiquette. I'm a big believer in it's about self-interest. You choose to use good manners because of how it makes you feel on the inside. I
Mhm.
tell children that when I teach, and I also talk about that when I'm working with corporations. And there is a new business etiquette, and and like you said, there's a lot of things that our parents and our grandparents and previous generations had no idea. Things have changed, and so I really liked. I remember that was at the very beginning of your book, Redefining Etiquette, and I like that you put your thoughts about it out there from the very beginning. And so I wanted to mention that because it does go so much deeper. And with children, I know I've taught them for years, and it's so wonderful. Just think about eye contact, and you see a child light up when something that a lot of parents take for granted. And I can completely understand that. But once they hit school and you start talking to them about eye contact, you see their little faces just light up. And so it's all about, for me, when I work with children and with adults, it's about confidence. Using
Mhm.
your good manners and kindness and knowing what to do in certain social situations. It's very important for a child's confidence. Any thoughts on that? Or what is your experience? And from being moms, what is your experience with confidence and good manners?
I think that's a huge piece of it because when Sarah and I were brand new moms, we were constantly finding ourselves in situations where we didn't have a clear answer for what we were supposed to do. What was the kind and considerate thing to do when you're in the middle of a grocery run and your baby has a diaper that has just exploded through their clothing and you've got a cart full of groceries you desperately need. You cannot walk away from this cart. You've got a child who's crying. You have a big mess to clean up. You have other people looking at you now,
Mhm.
and you're desperate and you're thinking, what am I supposed to do? And in those early years, Sarah and I would rush home and pick up the phone and say to each other, you won't believe what just happened to me. And then we would talk through, okay, what would have been the best thing to do? And really, we discovered we were always approaching these questions from three angles. What was the best thing to do for the child? What was the best thing to do for you, the adult? Because let's face it, you're a person too with needs and boundaries and comfort. And what was the best thing for everybody else in this situation? And so we sort of approached all these questions time and time again through that lens. And that became the basis for our parenting perspective framework.
Mhm.
That if you discover which of those three things you instinctively prioritize, then you can start to analyze your behavior and your choices
Mhm.
around that through that lens. if you approach certain situations through the lens of my child always comes first, that may be to the detriment of everybody else around you or even your own needs.
Mm.
So there are certain situations that call for different perspectives, different priorities. And that's really what we try to bring to light in the book, because ultimately we want you to make decisions knowing that you weighed these three things in your mind. You came to the best decision that you could for yourself, your child, your family, and your community. And then you have to just feel confident in the decision that you made, knowing that you might not please everybody. And so
Exactly.
we really want parents to have that sense of, I did the best I could. I did what I thought was right in that moment. I weighed my options. And now I feel good about it, because that gives you that confidence that new parents really, really need.
And I will say that what Evie said might sound a little abstract to someone who hasn't read the book, but you know, because you read it. In the first couple of chapters, there's a quiz. And you take the quiz, and that sort of sets you up for reading the rest of the book, because we give you a little a category, and it's a fun category, and it kind of connects you with one of these perspectives. And then you're able to look at all of the situations that we're presenting to you through that lens. And every chapter, at the end of every chapter, we talk through all three perspectives. This is where this will help you. This is where this might hold you back. And so you're really able to learn about yourself in this book. And we always tell our readers and our listeners that this book is not about your kids. This is not about teaching your kids which fork to use or to say please and thank you. This is a book about learning what kind of parent you are and how that helps you with your confidence and your connections and your grace when you're going out into the world with your children.
Yes, and it is real life, and I think you're right. It's you already know please and thank you, and how to chew with your mouth closed. But the book really does go into deeper real life situations, and so I cannot not talk about communication skills. And as I've heard from a lot of parents over the years, and also I work with teachers as well, conversation skills, communication skills with children. And this is causing a huge issue with adults and the way that we communicate. And so talk to me a little bit about communication skills. The chapter I'm thinking about and that I really appreciated was how to have a conversation with your child's teacher. And, the face-to-face, whenever, I know we're in a COVID situation, but let's just talk generally here. I think that's some really great advice. We all have a tendency to hide behind this, whether it's through a text or whether it's through an email. So can you give us some advice on talking to your child's teacher?
I think the biggest thing that I would say when speaking to your child's teacher is to start in a positive light. To start by giving a compliment, a specific compliment, not like, oh, thank you for teaching my child, but, hey, my child has told me so much about how wonderfully you read stories out loud. Even if it's going to be a tough conversation, because in the end, and, Evie and I are both teachers. I am still teaching preschool at the moment, but we've both taught for years. In the end, the majority of teachers, I would say 95% of teachers I've ever come across have wonderful intentions, and they do really want your children to succeed, and they do love children. And so getting a compliment like that from a parent means so much. Like, wow, this parent really does appreciate me. And if you can open the relationship like that with something positive, you are actually opening the door to have much more difficult conversations, because you're setting up the trust. And you want the teacher and the parent to be able to trust each other, to be able to have those harder conversations later on down the road.
That really stood out for me when you gave the advice, at the beginning of the school year, maybe a week or two after school starts, to just send the teacher a compliment, or, my child came home today and really liked XYZ that she learned today at school, and end it there. You're just making a connection, just making a connection. It is meaningful and it will make a difference. Not that you're anticipating a problem, but you've already established a connection.
And it helps so much, because then the teacher is going to feel more comfortable reaching out to you as the parent, because you've established that connection.
And also, you mentioned the family meal. So there's so many teachable moments with the family meal. And this is not about preparing a 3-course meal every evening for your children. I often give the advice to parents, and also when I'm working with teachers during lunchtime, to encourage conversation with child. Have this away, the laptops, the iPads, put it away, make eye contact, and have an interest in others. What are you seeing out there with conversation skills with children?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing a lot of, unfortunately, is kids sitting in restaurants with screens in front of them.
Oh, mhm.
So Sarah and I feel very strongly about this, and we always start this conversation by saying we are not anti-screen. My kids are on a screen right now, so that I can be having this conversation in peace after school hours. But there's a time and a place for it, and when we bring our children to a restaurant, or even when we sit down at our own dining room table, it is an opportunity for us to connect.
Mhm.
And if we place a screen in front of a child, we are signaling to them that we don't really want to connect with them. And they don't really need to learn conversation skills. And they also don't really need to learn the patience that
Mhm.
comes with eating a meal out, that we order, we wait, we have a conversation, we observe others, we have a snack of bread while we speak to each other nicely. We do not get up out of our seats. We do not run laps around the table,
Oh,
and then we stay seated until everybody's finished eating. It sounds a little bit old fashioned, but when we put that screen in front of our child, we are not giving them the opportunity to learn any of those skills at all. And we're really depriving them of the opportunity to hone those communication skills early.
yes, I agree. 100%. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
I know that sounds very overwhelming to a brand new parent. Like, well, you're kidding me, right? Like, no. And, we always suggest start small. Go to a place like a Panera where, you order your food quickly, you get your food, and you're in and out in 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We're not expecting you to
Practice ground
start,
there.
yeah, practice. I always say going out to restaurants with children is like yoga. It's practice. You have
Mhm.
to keep
Yes.
doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult in the beginning. So I can't tell you how many times Evie and I, because we used to live near a Panera, that we would take our babies to Panera together, and they were maybe 2 years old. And every time was stressful in one way or another. And I remember Evie and I looking at our babies and saying to them, "Do you see anybody else screaming in this restaurant? So why are you screaming?" Like when they were 2 years old, but because we were teaching them, like, look around you. This is
Right.
what's happening right now.
Social awareness, right?
Social
Social
awareness.
awareness.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Well, as far as communication skills, because I also work with corporations, and I can't tell you how often I hear from HR about the lack of communication skills, the lack of having a conversation, how to build a relationship with a client. The ability and the professionalism is just not there. And so I'm really trying to work with teachers, educators to express the importance of just putting down the devices and having a conversation and asking questions.
I
So
love that.
very important. Well, great. Well, thank you so much. This has been so nice to speak with you. Finally, we connected on social media, but you've given some great advice. I encourage my audience. You'll find a link in the article to how to connect and where to purchase the book. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to continuing to have a relationship with you on Instagram.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
There.
for having us.
Uh-huh.